Alright, moving on to the Northwest Division, where I talk about their biggest concerns for each team, as well as a wild card for each team that can change the course of their season. Alright, so first is the Portland Trailblazers, and my biggest concern for them is if Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons lineup can actually work. They're both score-first point guards, and they're around the average height of a point guard, being around 6'2", 6'3". So when it comes to defense, I would say they're going to have a problem because both of them probably can't guard twos that well. But offensively, the problem with them could be the usage rates and who's going to be off ball. I think this hinders them both. But with Simons being the better player, in my opinion, I think Scoot Henderson's going to be more off ball when they're in the lineup together. And we haven't seen Scoot Henderson really be an off ball player. So the biggest question for them is can he be effective in an off ball setting? As well as we've seen Simons off ball and he's been inconsistent too. So this is a real problem for them offensively if you put both of them in the lineup. The Trailblazers wildcard has to be Shaedon Sharpe because he brings a lot to the team now that Lillard's gone, and he's really going to have to step it up. And with his scoring can become a real lethal weapon for the Trailblazers, but I think he's going to have to pick it up on all ends of the court. So defense, IQ, hustle, he has to do a lot more on the court to keep him in the game, especially at a small forward position where he's going to have to face bigger forwards like LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, Brandon Ingram, Anthony Edwards, but as well as scoring on them, he's going to have to play defense on them if they're going to use a two-guard lineup with Simons and Scoot Henderson. Him playing shooting guard, I think, is the best bet for him to get the best effectiveness, but with their guards, and I think they really have to play, they're going to have to put Shaedon Sharpe in that small forward position more. So I'd say it really helps him if he could play the small forward position well, but it could easily end up hindering them if he struggles. My biggest concern for the Utah Jazz is actually if they could tank properly. Now I know you're thinking like they did really good in the season, they kind of fell out at the end, but if you've seen Danny Ainge's moves within the year and even in the offseason, he was trying to tank. He was gaining assets throughout the year and even traded away really good players to still end up losing more. I know from a front office perspective they want to tank, but now looking at the roster and coaching, can they really tank? They have an all-star in Lauri Markkanen and a rising player in Walker Kessler, and even a Summer League standout in Keontae George that can maybe in a few years replace Donovan Mitchell as a really good scorer. Maybe not an all-star, but still a really good scorer. And I don't know if this year can be the year that they actually end up tanking, because I really see them as a good team defensively as well as offensively, also bringing in John Collins into the mix. So this brings up a lot of problems with the front office's vision for the team, them tanking, getting a lot of picks, kind of Danny Ainge going back to Boston's method of becoming a great team, and the Utah Jazz's roster where they're already a good team, maybe they overachieve and then maybe they could trade them off to get another superstar talent to bring their team to another level. But I think it's just two different visions right now from the front office compared to the roster. So for my wild card, I got Colin Sexton, and he's going to be important because now he's going to be a consistent starter with Mike Conley gone last season due to the trade deadline, and I think he has a good chance of changing their team, becoming a more faster team, as well as him showing the league kind of what he can do, because he kind of was put in a bad situation with the Cleveland Cavaliers where they already drafted a next guard like a few years later in Garland, and then he had to play kind of a two-guard lineup with him, which I didn't think worked that well. So now he gets to be a lead guard on a team that has really good front court players that could help him easily. So I would say he would be their wild card, and he could either change their season where they become a really good team, better team looking towards the playoffs, or his play due to maybe his inefficiencies with passing and other issues when it comes to ball movement can end up for the team being around 500 in that area, and I would say that's their wild card. All right, so for OKC, their biggest concern is going to be injuries. I think over the past few years, they've been dealt with injuries. Last year, it being Chet. The year before, it being Giddey for a good while he was having a really good rookie campaign. And then the season before, where it was Shai Gilgeous kind of just getting injured here and there and kind of just ruining the momentum for the season and really seeing what the team's potential can be and what it can be in the future with other players. But I feel like with every new player that came in, they have shown that they're going to be a player in this league for a long time and going to be a good player. With Jalen Williams being really good, Giddey still having questions before with his jump shot, but showing you how good of a point forward he could be, as well as Shai Gilgeous, everyone thinking if he could really be a number one guy, and over the past few seasons he's really proven that. So I would say their main concern is injuries and having them all stay healthy and being in the same lineup to gain a lot of chemistry. So for my wild card, I got Chet Holmgren. And it goes back to his main concern of injuries. He was out for the season last season, so now he comes in as a rookie again, and he still has to prove himself if he could actually play at this level because of his body size and body type. It's something a lot of players haven't seen before, so a lot of people have questions about him. So with him playing probably power forward to start, I think this really helps him, so he doesn't have to guard any bigger defenders, or he doesn't have to play against opposing defenders where he could still drive and get to the basket. But I think he has a really good chance of being the second leading scorer on this team behind Shai, and giving them an option around the key area, around the elbow, as well as a three-point option, spreading out the court and helping players like Josh Giddey get easier baskets for other teammates with his spacing. So I would have to say Chet Holmgren is the wild card for this team. The Timberwolves' biggest concern is going to have to be their spacing. With Anthony Edwards being their best player now, they have to really find out a way that he could slash properly with Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns being in the lineup. And this is really going to change the course of their season, because last season with Karl-Anthony Towns out most of the year, Anthony Edwards didn't have to deal with a lot of that issue in spacing. But until he came back, it kind of became a little inconsistency for them at the end of the season. And they did get a win in the playoffs against the Nuggets, which is a really good feat. But in that moment, most of the series was kind of a wash. So I would say spacing is their biggest point, especially with Karl-Anthony Towns coming back into the season fully healthy. And they're going to play that lineup with him and Gobert more. So spacing is their biggest concern. So the wild card for the Timberwolves, I have to say, is Anthony Edwards, because I think this is a season where we could actually see him and have a lot of people say, like, officially that he's a superstar and he could bring the Timberwolves to a better level, better than being an 8th seed, 7th seed, and being a play-in team. I think they do have the potential to become a top 6 seed and actually contending with Anthony Edwards, because I think he is one of the best wing players in the league right now. And with the team how it was set up, I think more for Karl-Anthony Towns, this kind of set him back just a little bit, but because he's so talented, now he's propelled himself into being the best player, and him being looked at as, if they really do have a good season, he could be an MVP candidate in the future. So I'm going to have to say their wild card is Anthony Edwards just because of his potential. My biggest concern with the Denver Nuggets is their play without Jokic, and their lineup is really good without Jokic, with Jamal Murray, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, and others. But I feel like once Jokic is out of the lineup, I think that throws their balance off a little bit. They kind of get off rhythm because Jokic was so essential to their offense and the ball movement of that team. I think once he's out of the lineup, it kind of, just throws them off rhythm. So I think them trying to get back on rhythm consistently without Jokic in the lineup is their biggest concern. The wild card for the Denver Nuggets is Christian Braun. That has to do with the loss of Jeff Green and Bruce Brown, where they brought a lot for that team, especially in the playoffs and finals. And Christian Braun's going to have to come into a situation where he has to be a big contributor off the bench, whether it's cutting to the basket, shooting more consistently from the three, or just being that kind of handyman where he can really do it all off the bench, where Bruce Brown was a big contributor into doing that, even getting pick and rolls from Jokic and all of that. So he has a big role to fill off the bench, especially since their bench isn't filled out too much due to the bigger contracts from the starters. So I would have to say my wild card is Christian Braun.